Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Garibaldi Red podcast, a Nottingham Forest podcast brought to you by Nottinghamshire Live. I'm Max Hayes, your host, and we are back with a bang as we're into the mid-July, towards the end of July, and as Forest start pre-season, we return for another roller coaster season, I'm sure, and we've had a nice new lick of paint, a new logo, and a banner and background, so anybody watching live tonight, you'll be able to see it, and if you are listening back on YouTube, watching back, I should say, and also listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, then hopefully you like the nice new rebrand. We'll have some music very soon as well. Bear with us on that. Joining us to go with the new logo and brand is the one and only Max Scott, TalkSport broadcaster and Forest fan. Max, how are you, mate? Recovered from England's sad defeat again?
Yeah, mate. I mean, it really was deflating and devastating, but just sort of focused on the new Premier League season now. We've got Olympics coming up, which is going to be exciting, and then obviously just trying to focus my attentions on Forest and forget about what's happened basically. But is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. 58 years, at least it'll be 60 in the World Cup. It sounds easier and maybe better to say than 58. Also joined by Mark Turner. Not sure he goes exactly with the youthful and modern looking rebrand though. Mark, how are you, mate? I was always going to get you back after that comment earlier to me on WhatsApp.
Ouch. Hello, gents. It's good to see you both. I too am still reeling from England's latest final exit. It's very, very disappointing. To your comment, Max, this does date me a little bit. I remember my first watching England in a tournament was 1982.
Wow. Yeah, that's a long time. That is a very long time ago.
A lot of hurt here, etched on my face.
Yeah, well, at least you can offer the old knowledge, shall we say. I will also add that I am broadcasting from a new flat, so if the Wi-Fi goes down at any point and it all goes wrong, then luckily you've got TalkSport's finest Max and Mark. Sorry, Mark, that sounded awful again. But Mark to take over for you. So there you go.
I've done journalism. I'm a current commentator. I mean, you can pick anything you want, Max.
Yeah, you are. Sorry. We'll go with, I don't know, Forest fan and season pro. That sounds a good title for you, Mark. Right, let's start then, shall we? And talk about pre-season. As Forest kicked off this weekend, the players are set to board a flight to Spain in the coming days, and they'll play some pre-season friendlies. They've got a few teams out there, Sunderland, Millwall, and a few others. Can't exactly remember them off the top of my head. But Forest kick off pre-season with a win over Chesterfield, 3-0. I wasn't there, but managed to catch a lot of it after. And I know a lot of fans I spoke to thought it was a very good run out for the players. Yes, it's the first game of pre-season. Yes, it's always difficult to see really who are the standouts. But there seem to be some key performances. Mark, we'll start with you. Did you catch any of it? Watched it back? And just your general thoughts? Because there was a few standout performances. Nice to see players like Sangare on the score sheet really kind of hopefully coming back to full fitness, ready for a good pre-season.
Yeah, I did catch the highlights. And I also caught a really neat video as well on YouTube where somebody was focusing in on Sangare and kind of following him around the field and his highlights of the game, which if you haven't watched it, I'd encourage folks to take a look at because, it is very encouraging. I mean, again, it's Chesterfield, and it's pre-season, so you want to get, kind of too OTT. I will say as well, the Chesterfield goalkeeper looked very good. I know we're supposed to be talking about Forest players, but we might be in the market for a young goalkeeper to kind of bolster the ranks if we get shot at Turner anytime here soon. So it might be one to look at. But no, it was a good performance. And it was good as well to see the goals be spread around. Chris Wood, of course, popping up with his usual tally. Sangare, the aforementioned Sangare, also getting on the score sheet, which will do his confidence, I'm sure, a lot of good. And then one of the forgotten men, Bowler, getting notching a strike as well. So, it's and I think as well, Max, the most important thing is, again, with it being pre-season, is that a lot of players got to stretch their legs. Bowler wasn't the only forgotten man who got to run out at Chesterfield a few days ago now, a week ago now. Joe Worrell out there too, and one or two others, and a couple of debuts as well. So all in all, I think a pretty good outing.
Yeah, for sure. I think a positive performance, really. And the fans seem that, Forest took a lot of numbers, actually. I think they kind of had 50 split of the allocation at Chesterfield. And it looked like a good day out for the Forest faithful that went. We're always following good numbers, no matter whether it's pre-season or in the league. Max, what did you make of it? Because it is always a little bit difficult, isn't it, to tell during pre-season, and I can remember Forest have lost most games during pre-season, then got down to a really good season. Forest have played really well in pre-season, then it's been another poor one. So it is difficult to tell, but a clean sheet, 3 goals scored, players getting fully fitness, and Nuno talked after to Colin Frey about it just being kind of a positive day all round, really.
Yeah, you can't read too much into it. It's good they got the win. It's good that there was a clean sheet. It's good that lots of different players got a run out, wholesale changes at half time. Players are increasing their fitness. And, it's nice to see players like Dennis, players like Bowler sort of get a run out, really. And you hope that, coming into it, Nuno's first sort of full season in charge, that, the message will be everyone's on a clean slate. But you hope that that's a reality, because managers will always say that to players when they come in. But I think the reality in the changing room and on the pitch is slightly different. And I hope that's the case, because I think it's good for the culture of the dressing room. Obviously, getting 3 points is really good, and I'm just pleased to see that people are fit, and no major injuries. So we've got a lot more pre-season to go, so there's no point dwelling too much on it, but lots of positives I guess you can take from that.
Max, Scott, I got to ask you quickly about this, though, about being too cynical. Do you really feel like it is a clean slate, or do you feel like this was an opportunity to put some players in the shop window?
Yeah, I think you're probably right, Mark. Yeah, and fair enough. The club need to offset some players that they've spent a lot of money on and have done very little for the club, and so I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But you do hope that there is a sense within the majority of the squad that they do have a chance. You look at players like Josh Bowler, who was brilliant for Blackpool, and he just seemed to be caught up in the wave of signings when we got promoted. And you look at his career, it's not been good for his career. He's been shipped out to Olympiacos, he's been to Cardiff. You think the club owes him a level of consistency, or at least clarity on what the future is for him. And you'd hope in an ideal world he's going to turn out to be a really good asset for the club, because clearly there's a lot of talent in there. But you're absolutely right, Mark. Of course they'll be wanting to do that. I don't begrudge the club for wanting to do that, because our finances haven't been in the best state recently. So we will see how many of those players that played are in the 25, 26 man squad come August.
Yeah, for sure. And it's an interesting one with Bowler, actually. And we are live on Facebook and YouTube. So get your comments in if you think that Forest should maybe just keep hold of him and just see what happens, really. Is he somebody you think, Mark, that will no doubt go and probably go to a championship club? And, you do wish him all the best, but it is a shame because he's highly rated at Blackpool. I can remember when he played against Forest a couple of times before signing for us, and I'd always watch him quite closely. And it is a shame he can't provide that squad depth and maybe be a super sub. I mean, can you see him doing that, or do you think his kind of time at Forest is finished?
Yeah, it's hard to say, isn't it? When you look at the quality of players that Forest have been signing since they returned to the Premier League, not all of them have been top quality. That's not fair. Not every signing has come off, right? And that's always the way when you make these signings. You hope that the majority will, but not all do. But when you look at the level at which Forest are pitching now, without being too cruel, I suggest Bowler is below that. Like if we were in the Championship, I think we'd be drooling at the fact we were able to bring him into the team. At this point, whether he adds depth or not, I guess we'll see that in the preseason. I mean, he could surprise us all. But no, I expect him to be moved on. Joe Worrell, the aforementioned Dennis. I think there'll be a few that get shipped out. And best of luck to him.
Yeah, and you agree with that, Max? You think that you wouldn't really include Bowler in the plans?
No, I just think that, it's sad. I just think for his career, and look, I'm a Forest fan. I want the best for Forest. I just think for his career, you look at just how mad that summer was signing all of those players, and you just sort of think, well, why did we sign him? because he's got a year and a half, 2 years out of his career that he's not going to get back, and he was clearly on a good trajectory, and his career's gone completely stagnant since he signed for us. Sorry. So I hope that there's some clarity for him. It's great for him that he got a goal, and surely great for him to be in a Premier League setup, etc. But yeah, it is what it is. I think he'll probably go.
Yeah, for sure. Mark says actually on YouTube that Bola and Hwang were always strange signings. Yeah, spot on, Mark. He also said he went to the Chesterfield game. Just again, it's frustrating with Forest with the recruitment policy, and we've seen it this season. We're probably going to see it in the coming years, however long the Greeks are in control of Forest, that it is that kind of make a strange signing and you never see him again, which is disappointing because ultimately you want to sign players and them to play for the first team and them to go on to be crucial players. And
do you think we'll see that? Do you think that will be a continued hallmark, or do you think that the PSR charges that we've had and the fact that almost relegated us, that maybe Evangelos Marinakis and his team at the top have learnt that lesson? I've said this a couple of times, but I was really impressed with the way that they spent the Brennan Johnson money. We've not gone on the rampage, or at least not yet this summer. Mm-hmm. And I just think that maybe we will row back, particularly as we're growing, and developing into a more stable Premier League club. I'm not so sure that we will see a summer like that. I would not be, it wouldn't surprise me if we did, but I do think that they've probably learned that lesson, and that might not be the case. I don't know what you boys think.
What do you think, Mark? I'll let you take it first.
Well, Max, you and I have talked about this in recent episodes. I mean, I think we already see evidence of that. I think we've been quite buoyed by the approach taken so far this summer. I think we need to bring in Nuno has made noises around this. We need to bring in another wide man to give us depth and options, right? I hope that's Gnonto. I'd love to see it be Gnonto from Leeds. I think there's a possibility, although it's probably an outside possibility, that we bring in another number 9. And if we do, it's probably not going to be a marquee player. Again, it's going to be somebody to add depth. Because I think we have too much tied up in Taiwo and Chris Woods, and to Max Scott's point, too much fear around PSR to do anything, exceptionally crazy. Obviously, we're looking to bring in a centre back now. Hopefully, that deal will be done here in the next day or two, or confirmed in the next day or two. And so, no, I feel pretty bullish about the way they're approaching the market right now. I think it's very practical, but I do think the key is continuing to get people out the door and not doing it in a way that seems desperate. I don't know about you guys, but I've been very surprised. I mean, I just been a bit surprised by the numbers we've been able to get, by the players we've shipped on. It feels like excellent business so far, both in and out.
Yeah. The Mangala and Niakate deals was absolute stroke of genius.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because in those players, you've got players with European football pedigree, Mangala playing at international level. Mm-hmm. And, I think despite the fact that at the beginning of his Forest career, certainly Mangala was in and out of the squad, and Niakate struggled with injuries, to get the money that they have for them and offset PSR issues and maintain the services so far of Murillo and Morgan Gibbs-White, being in a position now where if you do sell them, it's going to be for the money that they are worth, not for a lower price. That is good business, and I've been incredibly critical in the past, and I stand by the criticism, but I think there is a slightly more seasoned approach. It's like, okay, we're in the big boys league now, and we know. We were very much scapegoats. I think Everton and Forest were scapegoats for the Premier League. Smaller clubs that were able to, aren't able to lawyer up like other clubs are able to, and to stall the process and things like that. And I think the club have learned. And so I just hope that continues, and we make signings that are shrewd, that sort of bolster the squad in the right way.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree. And also going back to your point, Mark, about the recruitment and just everything like that, I think that the ownership have made mistakes off the pitch, and they will maybe admit it at times behind closed doors. But I feel like there is no time for mistakes this season if Forest want to become a more established Premier League side and ultimately move up the league. We talk about Marinakis once in Europe in 5 years' time, but that isn't really a joke. He actually does. So for Forest to get Europe in 5 years' time, we've got to ship Deadwood out. We've got to stop bringing Deadwood in, and we've got to stop just the silly recruitment. I think the majority of Forest fans will be in agreement there. Let's touch on recruitment then and talk about, I know you just mentioned him slightly, Mark, with Forest pretty much being set to sign. I'd expect the medical to be done tomorrow, the day after, and it be announced in the next few days. With Nikola, defender, highly rated, young fella, and also very, very good performances in the Euros. For anyone that's followed the Euros closely, you'll be pleased to know that Forest are signing this guy because he's played really, really well for Serbia. Mark, what do you think of him? Made the headlines in the Euros, some standout performances.
What's the Euros? I've never heard of what you're talking about.
Still got it.
No, he's an outstanding player. We obviously saw what he did for Serbia. He was a mainstay both in the Euros and also in the previous World Cup as well for his nation. As you mentioned, he's good in terms of age profile. I watch some Serie A. I'm an unabashed Roma fan.
Yeah,
actually saw him score against Roma as well, which was annoying at the time, and now it's hard not to be kind of feel prideful about that. Like, oh yeah, okay, that's what Forest have to look forward to. The only criticism I'd have of him is because, of course, he's going to come in and play alongside Murillo, and you say Murillo's only Achilles heel right now is his inexperience. And so sometimes he's caught out of position. Sometimes he overextends himself in order to recover. And that's the only little criticism I'd have of his potential incoming centre-back partner is that he too gets caught out of position on occasion. I don't think his soccer IQ is quite all it could be. You'll notice a lot as well from videos you see online, YouTube and the like. He likes a good sliding tackle. He likes going to ground. And oftentimes I think that's a product of him being caught slightly out of position. He's not the quickest. He's not slow by any stretch, but he's not blistering. And I do wonder whether that inclination to go to ground might be problematic in the Premier League where, players are only looking for the slightest touch or maybe no touch at all, just an excuse to go down and then themselves a free kick or worse. So it'll be interesting. Obviously, don't want to judge him before he even steps foot into the City ground. I think overall it is an exciting signing, but that's the only reservation I would have. Yeah,
I can see that, to be fair, Mark. Lots of comments coming into us. Forest definitely have a feel of a proper Premier League side this summer. I agree. Actually, there's been some good movement off the pitch, and obviously still a long way to go. But long may it continue. Let's look at Milenkovic's stats then. Obviously, I don't get out a lot, so I've managed to compile a few decent stats on him. Appearances. This was last season in the Serie A League. 34 minutes, 2,506. Successful tackles, 41. That's 1.47 per 90. Tackle success rate of 76%. In terms of his clearances, that's a rate per 90 of 3.20. As you can imagine, expected goals very low, but the man is a defender. And in terms of his short pass accuracy, 90%. So they make good reading.
You say that about his expected goals, though. But I think he averages one every 15 or 16 games. So that's good for 2 to 3 goals a Premier League season, primarily headers off corners. But I'd take that.
Yeah, I would too. For sure. And also, he's a defender. So, expected goals rate would be just... I mean, it'd be interesting to see Murillo's actually. We know Murillo hasn't scored yet, but all those attempts from the halfway line, surely his XG has been up there.
It might have been the highest in the team last season.
He might have been, mate. He might have been. Matt, what do you make to him? And someone that you've covered the Euros a little bit for TalkSport as well. He was kind of a standout player, wasn't he, from the tournament? And a lot of clubs surely would have been interested in him, not just Forest. Yeah,
look, the Euros is one of those where, a great example is not from the Euros, but major tournaments is James Rodriguez and how, this Colombia launched himself onto the world stage. The fact that they're in the Forest are in the Premier League, it means that maybe they're not able to sort of go for talents like James Rodriguez back then, for example, but we're in the mix. And the fact that we're getting the business done early, I think, particularly to fight for a centre-back and to find someone to pair Murillo, it's really important that we do it early. And again, like the comment that we had, we're looking like a proper Premier League team. I think there are signs that things are definitely improving in terms of organisation and having a clear sort of... The vision's clear. Want to be in Europe in 5 years, for example. But, the steps to the steps to that need to be really considered and clearly laid out in a strategy. And I think that things like that seem to be coming together in the transfer market. It's great to see that we're getting it done early. You know, I was impressed with him at the Euros, but the thing that stood out to me the most is that it's been said that he tackles like Ola Aina. And for me, that's all I care about. You know, I'm not too fussed if he's not that quick, because Murillo does have a great pace for a centre back. What I care about is he can tackle, and like Mark's alluded to it, he's done that. We've seen it in the Euros, and let's be honest, he's going to be doing a lot of that playing for Forest in the Premier League, because as eternal optimists that we are, always looking for the positives on the pitch. It is going to be a challenging season. That is not a controversial statement. It is going to be a difficult season for Nottingham Forest. That doesn't mean it's going to be unbearable. It doesn't mean that it's going to be disappointing, but it is always going to be challenging. And so to have somebody that, is strong in the tackle and, has played against top players in Serie A, played in the Euros, it's only a good move for Forest, and it's good that it's been done early to get him settled in with Murillo.
I'll be fascinated. We know that a massive issue last season was set pieces, right? Both scoring from them, but mostly conceding from them. And whenever Willy Bolly was fit, I think we all agree it made a huge difference. I'm going to be fascinated to see whether or not Forest start with two at the back, whether it's Murillo and Milenkovic, or whether they go with the three and they have Bolly in there alongside him. Be interesting to see.
Yeah, it would, because Nico Williams, really came on last season, didn't he? And he looked like a real two-way threat.
Yeah.
Defensively and sort of getting up there, putting balls in, beating players on the overlap. And so you sort of wonder with that, that playing a back three and having two sort of strong wing backs with Ola Aina and then Williams, that might be a really good setup. And at times it has worked for Forest. But it's been that central defensive sort of partnership or trio that we've not had any consistency. Worrell, McKenna, Willy Bolly, Niakate. We've never had, until Murillo, this is our man at centre back and this is his partner, and hopefully we've got there now.
I'll give you the flexibility as well of potentially having two defensive midfielders in those away games, Sangare and Yates, for instance, and MGW tucked in ahead of them, or at home games, maybe going MGW and the lad from Newcastle, whose name I'm forgetting.
Anderson.
Thank you. Anderson. I wanted to say that too. And anyway, he and MGW kind of side by side with Sangare tucked in behind them. You can do that if you have that extra man in central defence. So it gives options. Be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also gives us leadership. You think about, you talk about the set pieces there. I actually tried to find a stat on Milenkovic on his kind of set piece defending rate, but I couldn't find anything of the sort. So if there's any Fiorentina fans watching or any Fiorentina statisticians out there, then get in touch. We'd like to bring you on the podcast. So fingers crossed, he proves to be a good signing for Forest. And Sky Sports were reporting yesterday that it's expected to be announced in the coming days. So good to see, and another good piece of business by Forest, really. All round. Talking of good pieces of business, we've got to mention him because we haven't really done a podcast before on it. Carlos Miguel, that deal, the goalkeeper, finally getting over the line from Corinthians. He made his debut against Chesterfield, kept a clean sheet, so absolutely brilliant. Mark, I kind of don't want to touch on him too long because we have mentioned him in previous podcasts and his stats and everything like that, but can you expect maybe Miguel giving Sal's competition, or would you expect Sal's to be the number one and Carlos is a young goalkeeper that's going to, provide to be a very, very good second option?
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I mean, my gut suggests Sal starts. He didn't do a whole lot wrong last season. Yeah, but I don't know. It'd be interesting. I mean, we've seen so little of Miguel. He's a big boy. I'm glad I'm the first one who gets to say it on the pod. He's a big lad, isn't he?
He is.
But it's good to have competition. So either way, excited to have him on board.
And have you seen that video of him? Well, I can't remember who it is, which player. Max, you might know where he pushes. He kind of walks up and he towers over this player. Oh, what a video! Absolutely brilliant.
Love it. Love to see that. It is. I think if you're Matt Sells and if Miguel starts that first game, Matt Sells is going to feel incredibly aggrieved because I think he's been absolutely fantastic for us. So it'd be really, I have no idea. But you would think though that he's a Portuguese speaking goalkeeper, just like his manager, and so you would think that if they're going to spend, what was the fee for him?
It was around 3 million, I think, something around the likes of that. So it's not too much. I think
isn't it? But
I could be wrong.
I think because of his physical dominance, because he is so massive, you almost think, bloody hell, you've got to start in, otherwise they'll beat you up. Do you know what I mean? Or that his presence sort of demands that he starts. And so it'd be fascinating to see. Like, I don't really mind. I think Sells deserves it, but we were still conceding too much, particularly from set pieces. And you would think that he's going to be difficult to beat him from a corner because he's a behemoth. And so really exciting, and also what I've read about him and what I've sort of seen just from clips is he looks incredibly agile despite his height. He gets down really quickly. He's an incredible athlete, and so great move for Forest. Adds a bit of depth. Glad to see Vladikimos off the books, and you just think, well, now it's probably time to get Matt Turner off as well.
Yeah, John Percy also, by the way, reported that Forest sold Vladikimos for around the 20 million mark, between I think it was 20 and 25 million, which and I think enough said on that. I think what a great piece of business. If only I could ship some podcast guests off for that much money, Mark would be out of there straight away. Sorry, Mark. And do you know what, Max? I reckon first episode in pre-season, mate, and you've just given us the best sign of the season so far. You've got to start him, otherwise he'll blooming come for you and beat you up. What a lie!
Well, there it is. But he's an imposing figure, and it's great that Forest have someone like that, right? But if I was a manager, I'd be thinking I need to start that kid.
But can we just say, as a mature adult on this podcast, we do not condone violence unless it's against Derby players. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I still love that video of Cafu where he walks up and gets is it Louis Sibley in a headlock or something? But obviously we don't, we do condemn violence, but yeah.
That's not violence, though.
No,
Go now. Look at that, bless.
I know. I'm digging that hole even more. Right, shut up, Max, and move on. Let's talk about the final piece of news to bring you, which came in the Telegraph the last few days in their front pages, that Forest are in talks with Ryan Yates over a new contract. When we're all big fans of Ryan Yates on this podcast, we won't shy away from that. Max, I'll let you have the first word on Yates. Brilliant to see, leader, legend, and good to see him getting a contract. Gives him a boost and gives the rest of the players, because he's got to be up there on kind of that leadership figure in the dressing room for sure.
Yeah, I think he is the leader of this team. Morgan Gibbs-White's certainly up there, but the fact that he is really part of the soul of the club, he's grown up in the club, represents us fans, with complete integrity. He drags the standards up, and what he lacks in sort of technical ability, he makes up in aggression, in passion, in determination, yards covered, tackles made. And just what a journey he's been on since Forest had been a Premier League club. Lots of other clubs would have let him go, and lots of other clubs would have sort of shipped him off on loan to a Championship side. And during that time, against all of, arguably against odds, or certainly against a certain section of fans and their expectations for him, he's proved himself time and time and time again to be an absolutely invaluable member, and credit to this football club. At times has been the only surviving member of the promotion-winning squad, while Worrell was on loan to Besiktas. And when you look at Worrell, the likelihood of him leaving, I think is really sad. I think it's incredibly sad how his relationship with some section of fans has been soured. I cannot understand the criticism. Yes, he might not be a Murillo. Yes, he might not be a top six centre-back, but I think he's been absolutely solid for us, and it will be sad if he does leave. And the reason I say this is because I think him, Joe Worrell and Ryan Yates have been integral to this club's journey, and it's a relief and joy to hear that Ryan Yates is in contract negotiations, and I hope that he's rewarded with a hefty Premier League contract that reflects his contribution to the club.
Yeah, it's an interesting point actually you make there, Max, about Yates not being a top six player, but he's got that leadership. He's he's homegrown. It's important to have players. He's part of the promotion-winning season. That is a good point, isn't it, Mark? Not just for Forest, but for wider football as well, is that sometimes it's not all about the quality, it's not all about the technical ability, but having those, we talk about it all the time, the leaders on the pitch that add to your favourite word, cohesion and everything like that. Just how important is it to have Ryan Yates in a Forest shirt and starting games on a Saturday at 3:00? Not that we get many of them in the Premier League.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything Max just said. And I echo those sentiments as well, other Max, in that, the Premier League is littered with players who are unsung heroes, who are vital to the fabric of that club and in many instances to the starting 11. They hold everything together. They make it tick. Their contribution's every bit as valuable as the flair players around them. And Ryan Yates just falls into that category. And additionally, he's one of our own. I was about to say he bleeds red. Ridiculous thing to say, but you know what I mean. I think it's fantastic that he's in discussions for a new contract. His signed Forest jersey is the second most treasured bit of Forest memorabilia I have, but behind my authentic 79-80 shirt. I absolutely love Ryan Yates and what he brings to our team. He's not without his shortcomings, but the same could be said of any player on our roster. We're not a top 6 team. Every player is fallible in some degree, but instead of honing in on those pieces and blowing up Twitter because you're having a bad day at work, instead, let's be grateful for what he brings to this club and the fact that he gives everything every single game.
Yeah, I think as well, one thing I'd just like to remind everyone about Ryan Yates is he's played in every part of the football pyramid. And when you look at this England squad, stacked with talent, only 5 of the players in the England squad haven't played in the EFL. And I'm not trying to sort of suggest that Ryan Yates needs to be in the next England squad. What I'm trying to make a point about is that he's a sort of English footballer through and through, sort of made in the EFL, and all of that experience has benefited him, and he's taken those experiences and to become a real solid Premier League player who's instrumental to us. And I just think, his journey is just fantastic and is an inspiration for younger players.
Yeah, I agree. Some great thoughts, and it's nice to have a player in the side that looks like you. I like it when everyone asks if he's my brother, or my brother looks more like him. To be fair, got to ask you both because we've had a few comments. Just away from Forest, the big news coming today. Obviously, Southgate leaving England. Yeah. Mark, we'll start with you. What do you think of it? We'll kind of go around and give our thoughts.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief, but I can sum this up in a pretty tidy nutshell. I think what Gareth Southgate's been able to do with this England, and I'm going to use the word club, in the last 8 years has been remarkable. I think people have incredibly short memories. Again, I mentioned my first tournament was 82, and it's been misery, more or less, ever since then, with the exception of 96, until Southgate came in. And what he's been able to achieve, what the community has around him, the staff, the players have been able to achieve, I think is astonishing. No, we didn't go over that final hurdle, and that's incredibly frustrating. And I am annoyed because I think another manager might have been able to do something different with this current group of players. But you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You have to appreciate everything he's given to the England team these last 8 years, and prior to that as a player as well. So best of luck to him. Thank you. And looking forward to the new guy and seeing what this team does next.
Yeah, you agree there, Max. And the thing is, he has got a lot of criticism, and I'll openly admit that I've been one to criticise him in the past. But as Mark just says, you've got to appreciate what he's done. 2 major finals in the Euros back to back, and your World Cup semi-final. We've had some good times with him.
Yeah, I mean, we all know, we're all football fans listening to this podcast. We all know what he's achieved. No other manager in modern English football has been able to achieve what he's been able to achieve. England don't have a divine right to win anything, and we've come incredibly close. But I think let's remember he's given us moments we will never forget. Penalty win against Colombia, beating Germany in a knockout stage, Jude Bellingham overhead kick. He's created an environment where those things can happen. And I think he's been in a bit of an emotional punch bag for English fans. And there's an incredible amount of scrutiny. But despite the pressure, he's shown complete humility, grace, and compassion and integrity as a leader in a time where, we live in, incredibly volatile times politically. Mark's over in America. There's been an assassination attempt on a presidential nominee. And, we've just had an election in the UK, 6 weeks of completely vitriolic, divisive rhetoric. And I think Gareth Southgate sets an example of what good leadership looks like, of what moral, strong leadership looks like. And I'm, incredibly grateful for who he's been for England, a statesman-like figure, a leader, and for the memories that he's given me as an England fan. Yes, I've been frustrated at times about his style of football, but I don't know if anybody else could have done over the past 8 years what he's done, and he should, we should be incredibly grateful. Because I think when England wins something, clip it up. When England wins something, we will look back and we will be thankful, because we'll know that without Southgate, it wouldn't have been able to happen. We'll standing on the shoulders of giants. That'll be what will happen if England win anything, and we should be grateful for him.
You make a great point there, because with previous English managers, the new manager comes in and almost has to break up what went before, because it was such a mess, right? It was never going to take the team forward, and so they had to come in and reestablish something, create something new, try and go in a different direction. And on every occasion, it's kind of failed. This next manager is going to come in and build on the foundations. There's no breaking up what went before. You've got to build on those foundations. And as frustrated as we might be about the defensive approach that we've seen from England, that defensive and resolute approach stands us in good stead. What we need to add to it is a more attacking, flair-based approach. And I think if you can combine those two things, again, building on what went before, to Max's point, our opportunities to get silverware, I think, are just going to increase. So props to Southgate and all he's done. Yeah, and also good luck, if the game's not already over by the time this goes out, to the Lionesses playing Sweden now, I think.
Yes, it is. It is. Okay. Yes, good luck to them. And I agree with you both. I think now is the good time. I think now is the right time for Southgate to leave and somebody else take the reins. I think he's laid the foundations down. Somebody else now to come in and try a different approach. Who do you want? The grass isn't always. Who do I want? I want this guy that's just commented. Mark's put Dave Asprey for England manager. I'm not so sure, Mark. I'm not so sure.
They'd missed the kickoff.
Yeah,
they'd miss kickoff because Dave would be giving some rousing speech, and that'd be it. I think, I tell you on a serious note, I think it's difficult to look past someone like Jurgen Klopp. On a serious note, I don't think that's going to happen. But
you can't do that. You can't do that, because England fans are going to be absolutely intolerable when England finally win something. Can you imagine how the German fans would be if one of their own was the one that got us over the line? We never hear the end of it from the German fans.
But I think that makes it even sweeter. That makes it even sweeter. But I think that's highly unlikely. If he's left Liverpool for, because he wants a sort of reduction of the pressure and the lifestyle, then going into the England job, one of the most scrutinised jobs in world football, that's probably not going to happen. But I think Eddie Howe would be good.
Mark says press conferences would turn into weekend conventions. I'm guessing that's about Dave.
Every game would be scheduled for extra time before the opening whistle.
It would. I'd like to throw in a name in the mix. I think he doesn't get enough credit. Whether he'd leave Newcastle, I'd throw Eddie Howe in the mix. I think I'd be very happy with Eddie Howe. I'd maybe think about Pep, but I don't think he's going to leave City. No. Other than that, maybe Steve Cooper would have been in with a shout if he hadn't gone to Leicester, genuinely. And people might laugh at that, but he's one of the only managers that's won silverware, apart from Sabina Wiegman for the Lionesses. Steve Cooper obviously won it with the under-17s.
Well, another name linked is Lee Carsley, who won it the under-21 Euros last year. And I think if England don't get something done quickly, what we'll probably find ourselves in a situation is that Lee Carsley is the interim manager. And if he goes through a UEFA Nations League campaign successfully, then that could just move into a permanent role, very similar to Gareth Southgate. And that will be underwhelming for lots of England fans. I understand that. But we've gone for the Capellos, the Svens at the time, these sort of fancy managers that we thought were going to, change things. And it turns out what we needed was Gareth Southgate at the time. And so I think there's so many different directions. I don't necessarily think the FA are as sold on going for an English manager, and so I won't be surprised. The people like Thomas Tuchel, Maurizio Pochettino, who are without a job, who know the English game, I think they'll be putting their hats in the ring as well. So we could see a foreign manager. Yeah.
I think it's cut and dry. There's two main candidates really going head to head. It's either Sam Allardyce or Alan Pardew. So, coin toss.
No thanks. I'll end that
Asprey
conversation.
For England. Asprey for England.
I think that finishes us with Asprey for England. There we go. I might actually title that the podcast. Right. I think that finishes us nicely for our first proper episode in pre-season. Hope you all enjoyed the rebrand. Thanks to our podcast producer Dan for working his magic. He's been working hard behind the scenes. So shout out to Dan. Thank you for all of the stuff. Right, I think that finishes us up. And just a bit of news from me. If you want to get yourself down because it's for charity, this Sunday, I am playing, managing, commentating, rather not playing in a charity football match on Sunday at Baseford in Nottingham. There is lots of people there. Neil Webb, Julian Bennett, Lewis McGugan, Kelvin Wilson. There's lots of others too. Coronation Street actors, a few Hollyoaks stars as well. There is some good people there. So it's a time to get the autograph book out and get your shirt signed, not by me, but by Julian Bennett and Lewis McGugan. So if you do want to see me make a fool of myself and stadium announce, then get yourself down to Baseford. You can get your tickets by going to Footprints on social media. We'll also put a link in the description for us as well. I actually need to go and buy some football boots. That's how unprepared I am. I've probably not kicked a ball in about 4 weeks because my uni 6-a-side league's been done. So any tips from you, Mark, as the experienced pro?
Yeah, just give the ball to Neil Webb. I remember, he's phenomenal.
He's managing. He's not playing.
Anyway, I love Webb.
It was scary last year running and Julian Bennett kind of coming towards me, like towering over me. Do you know what? In fact, Lewis McGugan said to me last year, he says, Max, he says, you've got pace. He says, you're skinny and you've got pace. You can run, but you've got no technical ability. And he summed it quite nicely up. So there we go. I will stick to podcast hosting and journalism stuff. Right. Give us a like, share and subscribe on YouTube. Thanks for all the feedback. We'll be back towards the end of this week. And we're here, obviously, all over summer, and we can't wait for the season to start. It's not long. It's coming. It's coming around quick. So we look forward to it then. Mark, Max, thanks so much. Appreciate the time, as always. And we will see you very, very soon from the 3Ms. Bye-bye.